Well, anything that's in public is public domain is open.
Okay.
But you also, it's like, I always try to like have some kind of relationship with people, like I'll look them in the eye, like you see me shooting at you.
In real time, yeah. It'll stream a lower quality to the desk.
The holidays do add a little bit of restriction. Another night.
Beautiful.
Emerging from the B-roll of 25 documentaries, Kirsten Johnson's Cameraperson is a fractious collage, moving across countries and decades, anchored by Johnson's presence behind the camera at all times. This is the first thing we see in Cameraperson, but I want you to focus on this. The autobiographical documentary is nothing new, but Cameraperson is a particularly unique example. There's only one shot of Kirsten Johnson in the entire film, and only a small amount of footage of her own family. There's also no voiceover narration specifying the personal significance of the clips selected. What there is some off-screen commentary from Johnson, though these are mostly conversations with the people she's filming.
You're making me cry even though I don't understand them.
That's so shame.
In terms of organising the massive footage, there's little that we're told as viewers. Intertitles mark place, infrequent subtitles mark people and provide some context. And while this text informs, it doesn't provide much insight into the substance of Johnson's memoir. We don't even find out where any of this footage is from until the closing credits. In spite of this, the film is clear in its fascinations. From the ethics of the documentary image, to collective cultural memory, motherhood, and death. But the clever juxtapositions that often signal these ideas aren't enough to embody the essayistic memoir. That comes in through the calculated, ingenious editing from Nels Bangerter, who takes the words of the documentary subjects and makes them Johnson's own.
We never go to our own trauma. We are just putting things inside of ourselves by thinking this is something what we need to do and it's a work. But it's really heavy work because after you proceed thousands of stories and putting in yourself, what is your channel to let it go?
This is just an isolated example, but the film is full of these moments. Jacques Derrida compares the Cameraperson to the philosopher.
She sees everything around me, but she's totally blind. That's the image of the philosopher who falls in the well, is it?
Yes.
While looking at the star.
Half an hour later, an astrophysicist in Texas suggests that these images are all connected, in spite of their temporal shifts.
You can entangle across time. You can entangle into the future and the past. You can entangle through space. That's what quantum entanglement means.
Here's where we get into the weeds. This is Cameraperson, with all the film's clips sorted into 28 tracks. 25 of those are the documentary sources for the clips. One is of new footage shot for the film, another of home video footage, and finally, one for opening and closing credits. Looking at the film this way allows us to see a few things in terms of structure. First, films are still being introduced up to 80 minutes into Cameraperson, but there are only a handful which Johnson keeps revisiting over the full runtime. Second, the two montage sequences in the film, one which follows people walking and one that cycles through places of death and horror, act as concentrated examples of the film's approach to linked images and ideas. Interestingly, they appear at the end of the film's introductory section and at the halfway point of the film. Another helpful structural guide, the scenes of co-opted dialogue. I've marked down these sequences in red here. While they shouldn't necessarily be seen as rigid beginnings and ends of chapters within the film, Their fairly regular appearance suggests they guide the clips around them and clarify the meaning of the film as a whole. One of the best examples of this comes near the film's end. Johnson is filming a midwife in a Nigerian hospital. A woman has just given birth to twins, but one of the babies is having trouble breathing. At a point of confusion, the shot suddenly cuts to black, and then interview footage from a completely unrelated film appears. When this interview segment ends, we cut back to the very same shot the first clip ended on. What makes this editing decision so important is that the dialogue in the interview scene appears to be Johnson's own perspective of the events of the clips around it.
I don't know how to describe it other than when you recall something that was very intense for you, especially if you're not like expecting, you don't see it coming. You just feel like this rush of feelings. You feels like you want to cry, but you're not really sad. It's just like, you know, and you know, things just start to cascade. You know, you remember. You know, you remember being anxious, you remember being angry, you remember being frustrated, you remember, you know, all that, all the feelings that went along with that time.
This pattern of co-opted dialogue connecting two clips isn't rigidly imposed, but it's regular enough to have a real impact on the flow of information. The memoir works, then, as a merger of narrative elements, outward observation of people and landscapes, an inward focus of home video footage, a pervasive self-consciousness through the presence of the camera, and an eclectic thesis drawn together from the experiences and the lives of others.